encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Good morning, America. You're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans. I'll be your host this morning. We'll be joined shortly by Doreen. She joins us every Friday. Doreen is the author and purveyor of truthfarmer.com, an outstanding blog I strongly encourage you to participate with. We're going to talk this morning about a few bills that are current in the House of in the Senate in Missouri, related to a couple of different issues. And we're also going to touch on what's going on over in Boston. If you're not aware at this point, you should be, that one of the individuals was killed last night. Another one is on the run. And these individuals turn out to be apparently two Chechen individuals that have been living here in the United States, in the Boston area for some time, perhaps even longer than a year. And these are a couple of pretty bad dudes. So for that guy at Salon who wrote the article about how he was hoping that it would be a right-wing extremist, in your face, punk. I've had enough with the liberal nonsense and the mentality of the liberal media in the United States. And that is one of the reasons why we are so vociferous in our statement of delivering truth over mainstream media propaganda, because that is exactly the kind of nonsense that we do not need in this country. We don't need a group of alleged journalists who are not really telling us the truth. We need to hear the facts. We need to hear the unbiased, unvarnished truth about what's happening in our nation. And since apparently the 5 corporations that run the media and tell you what to eat, what to think, how to sleep, how to stay awake, how to lose weight, how to gain weight, since they determine what you're going to think and how your world is going to run, our goal is to break the back of that chain, to snap the chain and cut it, so that we have an opportunity to hear the real truth of what's happening in our country. This is a fast-moving story. We'll be hearing lots and lots and lots of supposition and speculation about what's going on. I strongly encourage all of our listeners to basically wait for the facts to come out and wait until we hear what the real truth is. Now, don't misunderstand me. What you're going to hear from the mainstream media is not going to be the truth. What you are going to hear is what they want you to believe. But we still don't have enough facts in any way, shape, or form to make any kind of a call one way or the other on what's happening here. And so I strongly encourage you to wait, listen, and then, regardless of what comes out, read between the lines. There are 2 announcements I want to make for events going on over the course of this weekend, both of which I'll be speaking at, and you're certainly more than welcome to attend either or. The first is, and by the way, I am corrected, there was a rally that was supposed to be occurring at the Eagle Heights Independent Baptist Church in West Plains. I mistakenly was informed that had been canceled. It has not been canceled, and it is called the Rally to Support the Constitution, Second Amendment, and Eroding Liberties. And that will be occurring Saturday morning, April 20th, from 9 a.m. till 3 p.m. A free lunch will be provided. It's at the Eagle Heights Independent Baptist Church, and that is at 1078 County Road 8570. It's off of Highway 160 out towards the elementary school. I'll be speaking in the morning, probably at about 9:30 or so, right after the show here. And then following that will be John Moore. John is a talk show host on Republic Broadcasting. And then after that will be Brian Sharp, who's an evangelist who will be kind of connecting historic freedom to present-day circumstances. If you have any questions, you can certainly call these two numbers and get information, directions, more about what's happening, and so forth. The two telephone numbers to call are 293-9888. That's 293-9888. Or, both are 417, of course, 247-2702. That's 247-2702. Okay. The second is the Ozarks Freedom Festival that will be happening in Koshkonong City Park, also on April 20th from 9 a.m. till 4 p.m. And this will be a celebration of American patriotism and self-reliance. And the theme will be the Ozarks Freedom Festival. It, again, occurs tomorrow morning, Saturday, from 9 a.m. until 4 p.m. And it's just down Highway 63 in Koshkonong. The Common Sense Property Rights Coalition group is sponsoring that, and it will be a family-friendly event that will have food and some vendors that will be there, self-reliance topics and speakers. They'll be talking to you about preparation for emergencies, shelter, food storage, water safety, emergency medical treatment, radio communications, and so forth and so on. I'll be there speaking as well. I believe I'm on at 1. And as well will be individuals, Bob Parker, who ran for Congress, as you recall, Jerry King, voice of the Ozarks, Jerry Diamond, and others will also be available there. Number of Missouri House and Senate representatives have been invited, and I believe a couple of them have committed to come. Don't know who exactly, but Governor Peter Kinder has also been, Lieutenant Governor Peter Kinder has been invited as well. Oath Keepers board member and the president of the Montana chapter, Elias Alias, will be attending, and he will conduct a reaffirmation of the oath ceremony. If you're not familiar with what that is, it is an opportunity for all members of Oath Keepers and those who aren't members, who are either current or former peace officers, firefighters, EMTs, and first responders. And they will reaffirm and take their oath again to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, both foreign and domestic. There will be a lot of live music as well. I know that Will Brotherton will be there, and we're thankful to Will for his attendance. There will also be a fish fry and some other stuff. And the Brett Adams Family Scottish County Dancers. So anyway, please make sure that you put your plans together to take yourself and your children and your family down there. I think it'll be a great opportunity for us to get together. I'd love to meet some of you face-to-face and have an opportunity to shake your hand and thank you for your support for our program here and what we do and what you do to try to help restore our republic. Okay, we're going to have a couple minutes before the break, and then Doreen will be joining us. We're going to talk this morning about two different initiatives that are currently in the House and or Senate in the state of Missouri that are critical to the Restore Missouri project. And those are essentially two bills. One is the Second Amendment Preservation Act, and we're going to kind of give you an update on where that stands, what is necessary for us to get that accomplished and passed. And then the second issue that we'll talk about will be SJR 14. This is a constitutional amendment that's critical for you to grab a hold of and fight tooth and nail to make sure that this gets its way onto the ballot. And I'll explain to you why when we come back from our break. I also want to give you the name of a website that you should be visiting on a routine basis. Now, a lot of you have seen some of the witness forms that I've filled out for specific bills that are currently out there. And, you know, there's a fellow who runs the Missouri First. It's called mofirst.org, mofirst.org. Now, this particular site is exclusively dedicated to the sovereignty of Missourians. And basically, they give you updates on all the current bills that are operating in the House that affect our state sovereignty, and it is a perfect partnership for the Restore Missouri project. And so I strongly encourage you to get onto that website. This is also where the witness forms come from. And the guy who runs this thing, a fellow by the name of Ron Calzone, he has been an extraordinary and tireless, relentless fighter for Missouri. And I am so grateful to him for his efforts and his work. I can't express it really on the air, how hard this guy works to make sure that we are making progress and building that firewall around the state of Missouri, contemplating what we know to be coming which is the ability for Missouri to stand up and say, we declare our independence and sovereignty, and irrespective of what the federal government does, we have passed the legislation necessary to nullify federal mandates and unconstitutional laws here in Missouri. That is a critically important component, and it's something all of us should be aware of and working towards. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll return in just a moment. You're listening to America's Voice Now.
Hi, it's Hugh Hewitt on the next Hugh Hewitt Show. The Republican National Committee is in Los Angeles, and I'm talking to them following my show on whether or not the Republican National Committee actually has a clue on what they're doing. I think they do. They've got to come to Cleveland. I'll tell you why on the next Hugh Hewitt Show.
Sundays from 6 till 7, following Money Talk with Bob Brinker, it's the Weekend Journal with Hugh Hewitt on the Ozarks Best News Talk 107.1. Out of 365 days a year, we celebrate holidays, anniversaries, and other important days. But there is one day you look forward to, your birthday. I wanna wish you a happy birthday. Ryan's Steakhouse of West Plains is proud to bring you the Birthday Club weekday mornings with Cooper & Company. Our daily winner receives one buffet and a drink to Ryan's. Just call your birthdays in weekday mornings with Cooper & Company at 255-0427. Brought to you by Ryan's and the Ozarks Best News Talk.
And happy birthday to you. Cha-cha-cha-cha.
Okay, folks, we are back. You're listening to America's Voice Now. We are joined this morning by Doreen Hannes. Doreen is a special friend of ours, as you know. She joins us every Friday to give us insight into issues that are really an area of expertise that she has that, I fall really short on. She is really up on agricultural issues, issues related to things like Missouri First or MoFirst.org and our legislative initiatives. She really has a unique skill and talent and is a tireless worker for the state of Missouri. And all of you owe her a debt of gratitude for the work that she does. So she'll be joining us this morning as we speak, I believe. And Doreen, are you there?
I am here, Mike.
So you heard my lauding praise on you, but I have to tell you, you're entitled and worthy of all of it. You really are a tireless worker for this state, and I congratulate your efforts. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Sometimes it gets kind of tiring.
Tell me about it. Tell me about it. 6 days a week.
Yeah,
So,
I know. But, the thing is that we are at such a very critical time, and if we fail to act and to act properly,
right,
then it all just, catapults and tumults upon us, and we're already under an avalanche. But we have been fairly effective, and the effective actions are the things that we all need to do.
Well, if ever there was a time for Missourians to get off the couch and take heed and fight back, this would be it. So, the folks like you and Ron and myself and those of us who are out there, Bob Parker and guys like that who are out there working tirelessly to try to build the Restore Missouri concept, and it's not mine. I mean, listen, this is a fight that's been going on longer than I've been around doing this radio program. I just kind of gave it a quippy name. But, the Restore Missouri idea of building a firewall around this state that says, regardless of what the federal government does that's unconstitutional, we have a 10th Amendment right to be independent and sovereign and determine our own future. That is so critical to us. I hate to say it, but I'm reminded of the issue of these Boston guys. One of the things that Chechnya has been fighting is against Russian rule for decades now. Right. And, one of the claims that they have is we have the right to be an independent and sovereign nation from Russia. And, they were subjugated during the years of communism and so forth and so on. And I'm not giving these guys any credibility at all whatsoever. So please, folks, don't misunderstand what I'm saying. What I am saying is this. We are a part of a union that is made up of 50 states and a group of territories. But what's really critical is that we have something they don't have and never had anywhere else in the world. And that is a constitution that lays clear the fact that each of these 50 states has the right to determine its own future. And where those folks have been unable to establish those rights, we already have them laid out and a part of our foundational rule of law. Yeah. And that's a big difference.
It is a huge difference. And the thing is that over the course of time, the Constitution and the parameters set forth that the federal government is to operate under has been turned on its head. And we've been operating under a mistaken concept that the federal government trumps state government.
Exactly.
And this is completely untrue. You know, the federal government was supposed to be highly constrained and only have, I believe it's 18 different areas in which they should act.
Right.
Now, it has just ballooned, and, you know, when I first began to lobby up at the state capitol to, you know, this is an interesting position, Mike. I'm a person who would rather overturn laws, okay? And
right.
I found myself advocating to get a law passed to stop a regulation.
Isn't that amazing? Well, and look at how many there are. I mean, come on. You look at the statutes for the state and look at the statutes for the federal government. You could fill a room with them.
Yes. Yes, it's ludicrous, you know?
They're so convoluted and so complicated that even prosecutors and attorneys can't figure them out. Half the time they contradict each other, they overlap, there's all this confusion, there's lots and lots of gray area, which allows for, that's the difference between subjective and objective. Yes. Objective is everybody understands it and it's clear. Subjective is, we've got all this gray area and it, well, you know, if the prosecutor wants to prosecute this guy because he doesn't like him for another reason, he can use this law to get at him. And that is completely inexcusable. That's not the basis of the rule of law. If the rule of law is subject to the whims of men, then it's not the rule of law anymore. It's the rule of men. And that's where the problems lie.
Right. And, you know, one time and there are some decent attorneys, all right, but one time I was in a conversation.
Two.
Well, I'm not going to name them by name because their actions have to really determine
Trust
that.
me, it would be a very short list, but go ahead.
Well, this one attorney that I was speaking with actually said to me, words don't have any meaning.
Wow. Now that from an attorney is like a startling statement.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm like, you know, I'll tell you what, if they don't have any meaning, then we need to not have any laws. Therefore, you are irrelevant.
Good answer.
You know, the
right.
problem.
Your position is irrelevant based on your last statement, sir.
You're irrelevant. If words mean nothing, then why do we have so much difficulty with them? You know?
Well, isn't it funny that they're the number one culprits of the misuse and the twisting of words?
Yeah, absolutely.
And creating definitions that don't match the logical meaning. You know, our founders said over and over and over again that law should be so plain and so common that everyone understands them. And that we don't need mountains of them. We simply need a few base laws that tell us what we can and cannot do. But everyone should be able to understand them in plain English, and the definitions shouldn't be the question of, we shouldn't be trying to determine the definition of what is, right?
Yes.
As our friend Bill Clinton made famous. So,
but that was an absolutely brilliant statement.
It was, and it really opened up Pandora's box. I think attorneys were cringing when they heard that argument.
Yes.
Because it really exposed the treason of what they do with words to to the American people as a general whole. I think a lot of Americans didn't realize that they were being manipulated by these definitions that really don't have the true understanding of what words really mean and how they're twisted to meet the ends of some, pencil-necked bureaucrat somewhere who really wants to couch and hide behind language in an effort to achieve a pre-described agenda that really is not in your best interest.
Right. For example, income tax is voluntary, but the IRS has what it takes to take what you've got. So
right. What's so voluntary about doing something at the point of a gun?
Exactly.
Yes, I did sign the paper. However, if you didn't have the gun pointed in my left eyeball, I probably wouldn't have.
Exactly.
Well, you voluntarily signed. Well, okay, but that's questionable.
Depends on your definition of voluntary.
Exactly. Right.
So,
if you're holding my wife and children hostage and you're about to take our home and everything that we do, yeah, you could say it's voluntary, but I would disagree with that definition.
Exactly. So all of these things, these are the traps that are used to ensnare us.
Right.
We have all of these voluntary programs that are mandatorily voluntary. If you,
mandatorily voluntary.
Yeah.
It sounds like Senate intelligence to me. It's one of those oxymoron phrases, right?
Yeah, it is. Fresh, frozen, virtually spotless, all of those lovely phrases.
Virtually spotless. I love that.
What exactly does that mean?
Yeah, really.
But we have a number of issues here in our state that we can actually have an effect on. And the issue of the 10th Amendment, to me, it's paramount. If we as a state and any other state does not stand for the rights of its citizens and effectively act properly on the 10th Amendment, why do we bother having any states at all? Why do we go to that charade, that waste of time, that waste of additional tax money? And that issue, as I started off with the original lobbying, saying, I received answers from senators numerous times when I first went up there saying, well, if the federal government wants that, we have to do it because they trump us.
Right. And that word trump, is really such a misnomer, because a lot of people are fooled into believing that in reality they have the opportunity to declare a law that supersedes the rights and the will of the people of a given state.
Right.
And that is absolutely untrue. I'm going to give you an example of that, too. I just posted up this morning on Facebook the fact, and up on our website, that Biden came out the other day and said the president is already lining up some additional executive action on guns since they lost the issue in the Senate. Mm-hmm. And my comment was, only tyrants ignore the will of their citizenry. And then I asked a question. Do Obama's actions sound like the leader of a republic or a tin-pot dictator determined to disarm a nation in preparation for tyranny? And, when you have the will of the people that is clearly defined, and, we keep hearing him running around, he's been saying, 90% of America wants better, stronger gun rights or gun control. Right. And the truth of the matter is, if that was actually the case, why has every one of these initiatives gone down in flames? I'll tell you why. Because your president is a liar. When his mouth is open, the truth is not coming out. And, I don't know what kind of crazy polls he's going to try to back those statements up with, but they are clear, bald-faced lies.
Maybe it depends on what your definition of American is.
Well, that may well be true. I mean, here's the problem. The guy is drinking his own Kool-Aid, and he's surrounded by sycophants who tell him, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir. And he's got a bunch of yes men around him who completely, absolutely agree with him on virtually every one of these tyrannical ideas he's got. And some of them are actually feeding them to him, I'm sure. But, the reality is that when you have a nation that is led by individuals who don't respect the will of their people, then you have to take steps to protect yourself from that. The 10th Amendment was written into the Constitution. And, it's funny. When the framers originally wrote the Constitution, in order to get it ratified, the reason it wasn't ratified just as the Constitution itself is because the Bill of Rights had to be created in order for states to agree to it. Mm-hmm. They were afraid of a federal government that didn't have restrictions placed upon it. And that's why Amendments 1 through 10 were originally added to the entire Constitution, because they wouldn't sign it until they were. Right. The states said, we're not going to sign this thing because while we get the idea of what it generally says, we don't see that it's clear enough and specific enough to prohibit the federal governments from becoming what we just got rid of, which was King George.
Yes.
And so until you guys make this thing more detailed and give us the confidence that at the end of the day, we are going to have the independence of our state governments to dictate and rule our own lives on a daily basis, and show us how you're going to chain this this future or potential monarchy down with the chains of a constitution, we're not signing it.
Absolutely.
And after the original Bill of Rights was written, that's and only then was when the state said, okay, now we feel like this has enough meat to it that we can feel confident in going ahead and signing it.
And to have a union instead of a tyrannical run from the top on down system of government
Exactly.
that always leads to tyranny.
Always. It never has failed.
Yep.
So we're going to take a break. When we come back, there's two bills I'd like to talk about. One is Senate Joint Resolution number 14, and we can get into the value behind that. And then the second one is the Second Amendment Preservation Act, which is really, really moving quickly now. So, folks, we'll take a break. We'll be right back.
This is a Fox News alert. I'm Chris Foster. Police are swarming the Boston suburb Watertown, trying to catch the surviving Boston Marathon bombing suspect. The latest live now from Fox News Radio's Courtney Keeley.
All public transportation and taxi service here have been suspended, and schools are closed as this manhunt continues. The epicenter of the search is Watertown, where police continue door to door. Residents urged not to open their doors unless it's for the police. All of Boston and the surrounding area also told by the mayor and governor to stay at home. The first suspect has been killed. The second is still on the run, considered to be armed and dangerous. Chris?
And we're told the suspects are brothers living here for years legally, originally from southern Russia. That's according to a man saying he's their uncle. Police say the suspect robbed a convenience store, killed a campus police officer from MIT, and then carjacked an SUV last night. This is a Fox News alert.
Thanks to our friends over at Ozark Mountain Self-Reliance. You can reach Brian down there at 870-492-4030. It's located a half mile east of Walmart on 3225 Route 62, Mountain Home. My dear friend Mary over at Chantilly's Artisan Bakery, the best damn bakery in 100 miles. She's located at number 2 Evans Arcade, and you can call her at 255-2253. My friends over at Pizza Hut on Porter Wagoner Boulevard. They have an outstanding lunch opportunity. You can, from 11 till 2, and you can have salad and pizza, something tasty and something good for you. Our friends Bill Stone over at Stone Construction at 293-0116. If you're considering doing any kind of remodeling, new or custom construction and or light commercial, give Bill a call and let him bid on your next project. Our friends at the Battery Station at 303 Washington Avenue, 417-257-7799. They can be found at thebatterystation.com. Our friends over at West Plains Pawn and Gun, an outstanding opportunity with 400 firearms under glass. You can reach them at 417-256-3000, and they are located at westplainspawn.com. Located physically at Highway 160, about a mile past Walmart on the right-hand side. And finally, the sponsor of our phone lines, Wits End Classic Barbershop, located on the square in West Plains. Best haircut you can get for $10, and a nice young man as well. Please visit and support our sponsors.
If you're looking for great deals on iPads or Kindles, look no further than your neighborhood Radio Shack authorized sales center. They've got great deals on the latest iPads and Kindles. Maybe you need a new GPS or an MP3 player to get your music library ready for those barbecues. Whatever your electronic needs, stop by your local neighborhood Radio Shack authorized dealer in West Plains at 1408 Southern Hills Shopping Center, or call 417-256-1819.
Weather is a service of News Talk 1071 The Point. Contact Josh or Cody at 255-2548 for more information on making weather sponsorships part of your marketing plans.
From the Point Weather Center for this morning, a mainly clear sky, mostly sunny through the day, the high 54, clear with frost tonight, low 34. Sunshine and milder tomorrow, high 64, plenty of sunshine Sunday, high again 64, sunshine Monday, high 68. I'm staff meteorologist Jim Rinaldi, and for more information, visit my1071thepoint.com.
The area's best selection of firearms and ammunition can only be found at West Plains Pawn and Jewelry. Top-of-the-line handguns from Kimber, Smith & Wesson, Ruger, Glock, Beretta, and many more. A wide selection of ammunition including blanks, centerfire handgun and rifle, rimfire, a variety of shotgun shells, target, and turkey. With new arrivals every week, the area's best selection of firearms and ammunition can only be found at West Plains Pawn and Jewelry, 1713 West U.S. Highway 160, or shop online at westplainspawn.com.
Okay, we are returning. Thanks for sticking with us this morning, and thank you for joining Doreen and I in reference to our program this morning. We want to talk about two specific issues today, and I think we'll address them one at a time. First, I'd like to address the Second Amendment Preservation Act, because that is one that is really, really close at this point to passage. The idea of the Second Amendment Preservation Act, if those of you, I don't know anybody who's not aware of it at this point, but you should be. Basically what it states is that Missouri is not subject to federal firearms regulation within the state. And so it nullifies, and it is a nullification bill, make no mistake about it. Missouri nullifies all federal action regarding the Second Amendment. It states that under the Second Amendment Preservation Act, any law passed by the federal government relating to firearms has no purpose, and is null and void in the state of Missouri. And that goes all the way back to inception. And so the 1934 Gun Act, the 1968 Gun Control Act, all of those are invalidated. It also provides protection for Missourians under any future legislation that may come down the pike. Now, what it says is essentially this. The state of Missouri can make its own gun laws, and the federal government has no purview inside this state. End of argument. If we believe that it's appropriate to do some kind of limitations or monitoring or whatever the case may be, that is the purview of the state, and the federal government has no say in it.
Right.
And right now, where we stand on HB 436, which is House Bill 436, it is pretty close to passage. So what we really need to do now is put the final push on to make sure that we get this thing passed, in its entirety. And
Right.
we have to get this passed right now because, strategically speaking, the governor's on the ropes.
Yep.
He's on the ropes because of this issue about Real ID and them handing off the CCW permit information to the federal government and the ATF. And right now, I believe that if this thing were passed immediately, within the next couple of weeks, that the governor would shy away from vetoing it.
Well, we also have this issue. It did pass the House, and it was 115 to 41 that it passed the House, and that is a veto-proof level vote. So now we have to push 436 through the Senate and get it through the Senate quickly. And that's going to require everybody to be on the phone and to get their friends to be on the phone to push the Senate leadership to bring it to the floor as quickly as possible and to pass it with a veto-proof majority.
Right. And the reason why it has to be done quickly is because once the General Assembly goes out of session, we'd have to wait to the fall to veto the governor, to override the governor's veto if he does.
Right.
Now, there's two things that the governor can do when he gets a bill. He can either sign it, he can veto it, or he can just not respond to it. And if he doesn't respond to it, it becomes law without his signature within a 15-day window.
Right.
So essentially, what we've got is a position where if we don't pass this now, we've got to wait that 15-day session or that 15-day period. He's either going to sign it, or I don't think he'll sign it because it's not in his political best interest to do that.
Correct.
But he can let it become law by just ignoring it and pretending it doesn't exist. So the goal is to get it passed before, at least 2 weeks before the Senate the Assembly goes out of session, so that in the event that he does veto it, we can pull it back in under an emergency session and say, no, we're going to override the veto, just like we did with CCW back in 2004 or 5.
Right.
Whatever it was. So the idea is that the goal is to make sure that we get this passed immediately, if not sooner. And ladies and gentlemen, that is the reason why you need to apply every ounce of pressure that you can on your state senator, whatever district you're in. And if you're in this district and you know that you've already made your calls, I want you to get on the telephone with your friends who live in other districts and start applying pressure on them. If you've got family in another portion of the state somewhere, it is time for us to make an all-out push to get this bill passed. It must be resolved, and it has to be done now. We can't wait any longer.
Well, what we really need to do, we need to call our senators, and we also need to focus on Senator Dempsey, who's the head of the General Laws Committee, or I'm sorry, he's the president pro tem of the Senate.
Right.
And so Tom Dempsey is his name, and he has to be focused upon because he's the one that will bring it to the floor quickly or not.
Right.
Okay? And then Senator Brian Nieves is the chair of the General Laws Committee, and he is the one who determines which bills on his calendar get preferential treatment. And at this point, we are nearing the end of session, so we have to get this through, as you stated, before that 15-day issue comes into effect. The hope was to get it through by April 17th. We can still make it, but we have to do it this upcoming week.
Right. It must be passed this week.
Yes.
So, folks, all-out push. I don't care what. Shut off your TV. Shut off your extracurricular activities and make it your business to make sure that Dempsey and Nieves are fighting the good fight on this thing and making sure it gets to the floor. It must pass in the next week.
Right, absolutely. And, so we need to call our own senator as well as these other senators, Dempsey and Nieves, and then we also need to focus on Senator Ron Richard, who is he's the one responsible for delegating the amount of time that something is given on the floor for debate.
Right.
Okay? So it's such a tricky process. I understand that it's difficult to give, step-by-step, blow-by-blow instructions because it is a lengthy process and it is complicated. But, you got 3 senators to call plus your own.
And here's the phone number for you to call. Perfect segue. I owe you $1 for that. 573-751-2000. That's 573-751-2000. And all you got to do is ask, and that's the main switchboard, just like the federal number I give out all the time. That's the switchboard. You call that number and you ask for these individuals by name. And what you want is Senator Richard, Senator Dempsey, and Senator Nieves. And if you're in this district, Senator Cunningham. You're going to have to make 4 calls. Oh, poor you. Pick up the telephone, make the calls. I don't care if you set aside, 15 minutes during your lunch break to just make these phone calls. But it is absolutely critical that we apply every ounce of pressure we can to get this passed this week.
Absolutely.
We don't have a choice, folks. If we blow this opportunity, we are going to really, really rue the day. So get on the phone to your friends and your family who live in other districts as well.
Yes.
Explain to them what this process is. Send them a copy of this YouTube video or, have them listen to the show tonight or whatever the case may be. If they're outside of our district and they don't get this radio program, then send them a copy of the YouTube video, which we post up every day. Let them know how critical this is to our state to get it passed. Ron Richard, Tom Dempsey, and Brian Nieves. And your state senator in your district, whomever that may be. And in this case, for the district where I live, it's Cunningham. The goal is we've got to get this thing resolved this week. Yeah. And then we have enough time to override the veto if he does it. And if he doesn't do it, and we've got enough time to override it if he attempts to not to sign it in the 15 days.
Right. Well, to me, the issue is that we must have a veto-proof majority in both houses, and I believe that we can accomplish that. We've already gotten that done for us in our house, in the Missouri House. So, another thing that people need to do, I believe, is when your representative has done the right thing, call them up and say thank you.
Absolutely.
You know,
absolutely.
Because, I mean, they're just people, too. So when they've done the right thing, you call them up and say thank you. And when they don't do the right thing, you call them up and you give them a good, solid piece of your mind.
Right. But, you know, and your point is very, very well taken. No one responds well to only negativity.
Right.
And so when you call up and you're saying to them, either you're going to do this or I'm going to work against you in your next election, that's a negative function, people. So it's just as critical for you to call up, and when you say that, say, I need to know where the senator or the House member, whatever it is, stands on this issue. I want to know what their vote's going to be. And trust me, most of their aides know exactly where they stand on that issue. And if they say, we're voting yes on bill number whatever, then your response should be, I want the senator or the House member to know, the representative to know, that I'm very grateful and appreciative of their efforts to help us restore our state.
Yes.
And make sure that you praise them when they've done the right thing. You know, you're never going to get a dog to do the right thing if you sit there and just beat him with a newspaper all the time. Sometimes you got to give him a treat and say, good doggy, good doggy. And I'm not relegating Congress to that, but I am saying that everyone needs praise for a job well done.
Absolutely.
All of us. We do the same thing. You know, you can't reinforce educational principles in your child's mind by only condemning them when they get a bad grade. You've got it when they walk home with an A on their report card. You say, wow, son, job well done.
That's right.
So, you know, I mean, let's make sure that we're doing that too, right?
Right, because that makes all of your actions more effective.
Exactly. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about Senate Joint Resolution 14.
Okay.
Kim Commando, a.k.a. the Digital Goddess, keeps you plugged in with a daily feature, Kim Commando's Digital Minute. This segment keeps you informed with what's going on in the technology world, along with new tips and tricks to use at home to improve those computer skills. Catch Commando at 7:22 a.m. during Cooper & Company on the Ozarks Best News Talk. If the feature has you craving more, join Kim, the Digital Goddess, Saturdays from noon to 3 on the Ozarks Best News Talk, 107.1 The Point.
Howell County Bank branch of Banketh there, locally owned and operated since 1900. It's not what they do, it's how they do it. What does that mean? Roger London, president of Howell County Bank.
You know, when people come through the front door at our bank, they're going to be greeted by 2 or 3 people immediately before they hardly get in the door. And they're going to find a very, very warm environment and people that are enthusiastic about serving them.
At Howell County Bank, it truly is not what they do, but how they do it. Equal housing lender, member FDIC.
The next big thing from Samsung is coming soon to U.S. Cellular. Meet the all-new Samsung Galaxy S4, the phone that gets to know you. Scroll through a page without ever touching the screen. Turn your phone into a TV remote control. Take photos you'll never believe came from a smartphone. Visit uscellular.com to find out how you can get the all-new Samsung Galaxy S4 from the provider that puts people first. U.S. Cellular. Hello better. See uscellular.com for details.
It's a call and make your voice heard on the biggest issues making headlines today, or on absolutely anything in your head. Every call I get goes on the air totally unscreened. It's unpredictable and uncensored, and you'll never know what to expect. Anything can and will happen on the next Alan Combs Show.
And that's who you can catch every weeknight, 9 till midnight. The Alan Combs Show on the Ozarks Best News Talk, 107.1 The Point, Monday through Friday.
All right, we return. Just a quick update, by the way, for you folks. Sean Rhodes and Jeff Pogue, those are the 2 representatives for Oregon County area and also Howell County area, will be at the event in Koshkonong tomorrow. So if you weren't planning on attending, this is a great opportunity for you to come to the Ozarks Freedom Festival in Koshkonong City Park tomorrow morning, and or during the course of the day, and have an opportunity to speak to Sean Rhodes and Jeff Pogue. Those are the 2 representatives for the area, and also State Senator Mike Cunningham will be there. He is the state senator for that district as well. So there you go, folks. There's a perfect chance for you to get down there and speak to them one-on-one, shake their hand, let them know that you appreciate what they're doing for the votes that they are taking to support these given amendments and bills that we know to be the ones that are necessary for us to move forward as a state.
Absolutely.
So I believe that all three of them have voted for either their House or Senate respective versions of this. And, what we can do is make them aware of the fact that we know that and we appreciate where they stand on it, and ask them what we can do to help drive the effort forward, because it's just as important that we hear from them, hey, you can call this guy or call that guy, right? But remember, the telephone number that we gave you earlier, I'm going to give it to you again, 573-751-2000. That's the number where you can call for Ron Richard, Tom Dempsey, and Brian Nieves, and make sure that you're letting them know that it has to be passed in this particular session.
Yes, and let them know that you seriously want them to move this bill as quickly as possible through the process, because it passed the House, it has to pass the Senate, and it could do so this next week if we push correctly and we ask for it and, encourage them in their duty, really, to protect our state from an infringing federal government.
And boy, oh boy, is it all of that and then some.
Oh, my goodness. Yes. But, it's one excellent step, and also the precedent that it sets with reasserting the 10th Amendment and the power of the 10th Amendment, and our absolute necessity at this point, Mike, to be proactive on nullification efforts is tremendous. So it isn't only about firearms, folks. It's about the duty and the right of the state to be an intercessor for the people, holding the federal government within the proper bounds of the Constitution.
And that, I owe you another $1. Your segues are right on today. That is where Senate Joint Resolution 14 comes in. Let me tell you what this is, folks. If you're not familiar with it, this is what it is. And by the way, it's already passed the entire Senate with a vote of 29-2. Now, it has to go through a number of machinations. It's passed the Senate once, then it goes to the House for a second read, then it goes to a committee with a public hearing, then it gets 2 more House votes, and then it gets onto the ballot. Right. And here's what it is. This is a Senate joint resolution for a constitutional amendment. And I'm going to read to you what the constitutional amendment's language will be, and you'll understand why in just a second, why what Doreen said and this are so important. Here's the language. Shall the Missouri Constitution be amended to include a declaration that the right to keep and bear arms is an unalienable right, and that the state government is obligated to uphold that right. Did you hear that last sentence? And that the state government is obligated to uphold that right. Why this is so important is this. We already know that under the Second Amendment Preservation Act, we're declaring that federal law is null and void and that we have the right to make our own determinations about firearms within our own state. Mm-hmm. What this does is it puts an amendment to the Constitution that says not only are those rights unalienable, but the state of Missouri shall be obligated to uphold these rights and shall under no circumstances decline to protect against their infringement. That is the key kicker for this one. What it basically states is, if the federal government comes in here and tries to seize someone's firearms or arrest them or whatever the case may be for a firearms violation, the state's obligated to defend you.
Yes.
Now we're talking, right? Because, the Second Amendment Preservation Act makes it a misdemeanor for a federal agent to come in, which is great. I mean, the simple truth is, and I had it explained to me this way. Everybody said, well, it ought to be a felony. Well, hold on a second. The fact that it's against the law, period, is strong enough. But what you have to realize is that once it becomes against the law, if they do come in, and let's say they raid your home and they take a bunch of your guns and walk out the door, at that point, folks, it's felony theft anyway.
Right.
So, the fact that they've done it is a misdemeanor, but the fact that they actually took the firearms or tried to arrest you, which is now called kidnapping, makes it an immediate felony because their actions create the felony. So don't worry about the small stuff. Let's focus on getting the Second Amendment Preservation Act passed and combine that with Senate Joint Resolution number 14, because this gives us the ability to say not only is it illegal for the federal government to intervene in the state of Missouri, but the state of Missouri will now be obligated to defend its citizens against the federal government's overreach, even if that means that they have to support and defend this in a criminal environment or a civil environment all the way up to the Supreme Court. Correct. Get it? Now because here's the deal. very few of us can afford a physical fight against the federal government. Financially, they'll beat you to death with attrition.
Yeah, and
so
that's their modus operandi.
Exactly. They just pummel you to death with financial bills that you can't afford, because attorneys don't work for free, especially in the federal realm. And when you get up to once you get through the district court, then you got to go to the appellate court. Once you get through the appellate court, you got to go to the Supreme Court. Then the Supreme Court has to be willing to even hear it. Right. I mean, you're talking about very, very expensive cases. I took my case all the way to the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, and I did it by myself, and I won. But I have to tell you, it's a very, very time-consuming and difficult process, and it is not one that anybody wants to get into. So, the simple truth is, what we need is we need the wherewithal that the state can provide that we as individuals can't.
Right, and that's a very important point about this, because currently our Second Amendment protection in the state of Missouri says that right shall not be questioned, but it doesn't put any onus upon the state to interpose on our behalf if it should be infringed upon.
And that is the alternative term, by the way. When you hear the word nullification, the other word that's synonymous with that is interposition. The state interposes itself between the federal government and you. Think of it this way. There's a 6'5" bully who's about to beat up your 10-year-old.
Yep.
And you, as the parent, step in between and say, not today, not over my dead body. You're not getting to him unless you come through me.
That's you interposing.
That's interposition.
Yep.
and so you have to realize the value of that, because suddenly the bully says, okay, I'm going to go look for an easier target.
Exactly.
Right?
So, and it encourages right action and pretty much just requires right action on the part of the state. Whereas right now, it shall not be questioned, but that doesn't mean that it shall not be infringed upon.
Right. Well, this actually states that. It says that the right of every citizen to keep and bear arms in defense of his home, person, family, and property, or when lawfully summoned in aid of the civil power, shall not be questioned. The rights guaranteed by this section shall be unalienable. The state of Missouri shall be obligated to uphold these rights and shall under no circumstances decline to protect against their infringement.
There you go.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is a powerful statement. Now you're walking in, and you're walking into court not with a drumstick, but with a baseball bat.
Yes.
And there's a big difference there, because, listen, they've got a bevy of lawyers up there that we don't have, and they've got the skills and the tools and the talents and the experience to deal with the federal government that we could never hope to achieve by hiring even one attorney, because they'll put a raft of attorneys on it.
Yes, because then they have the full weight and force of the federal government and all those, tax dollars and the printable digital money to work with.
But I'm saying that the state has a raft of attorneys that they can put on it, too. I mean,
that's true.
When you're talking about being defended, do you want one attorney who's a lone practitioner to work and defend your case, or do you want 13 guys who are all going to sit around a table and brainstorm the right solution? Hey, more brains is good power, in my opinion. So,
well, in my opinion, I don't even want to go there.
I don't either. But this puts the onus on the state,
right,
to support and defend us.
Absolutely, and that's what we have to do, and that's actually the proper role of government.
That's the only role of government.
Yep.
Right? What is government, people? It is formed for one purpose and one purpose alone, and that is to defend the rights of those who are the creators of that government. It is built and designed to act as nothing but an intercessor to defend those rights against actions by either tyrants or a majority, as in a democracy, right? So that the rights of the minority or even the individual are protected against mob rule.
That's right.
Or an individual tyrant.
Now, where this is at in the process, we have to push it through the House as quickly as possible, guys. So the man to call there is Caleb Jones and Tim Jones, Speaker of the House.
That's right. Tim Jones is the Speaker, and he holds an enormous amount of power on this issue.
Yes, but Caleb Jones is the representative in charge of the General Laws Committee, where SJR 14 is now waiting.
There you go. And it's idling, folks. So on the horn.
Yep. There you go. You have your actions.
There's your action for the day. 751-2000, 573-751-2000. You've got your names. You've got your phone number. Call to arms. Call to action. Move. All right. Thank you so much for joining with us, Doreen.
Thank you, Mike.
Love you, girl. Hey, thank you, folks, for joining with us today. We will see you bright and early tomorrow morning, and then I'm hoping that you'll come down to our event in Kosh or the one that's in West Plains. Please, I'll make sure I give that information out tomorrow morning again. We'd love to see you there. Thank you very much for being with us today. Remember that the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing.